Eagles jumping into preseason tomorrow against the Green Bay Packers, and of course we will have all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Training camp, it's always interesting. A couple games in preseason to kind of know where this team stands. We'll break it down a little more. Zach Gelb does a great job with 920 The Jersey. You can catch him every Monday to Friday, 4 to 6. Kind enough to join me for a couple moments. How you been, Zach?
Q, doing great. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
I'm doing well, buddy. I'm doing well. Always good to catch up with you. All right, you've been at Eagles training camp over the last several weeks. You've been there the last several days. Let me ask you this. If you are an Eagles fan, when you walk away from the cornerback and the issues with the cornerback right now and even covering the team, how bad is it right now from what you've seen over the last, I guess you can say, several weeks?
Well, Patrick Robinson has been a big-time disappointment, and I know Howie Roseman said he was moving away from Band-Aids, but this Band-Aid may just be falling off on itself because I think it's going to be a really bad secondary, specifically with him. You could have some positives with some of the play by Ron Brooks and Jalen Mills. It's been up and down. I've seen them stop Carson Wentz 12 straight times on one series, and the next series look like they've never been able to play football. Overall, I think the defensive line will be good. They'll probably use about 2 linebackers. They'll play a lot of nickel, and if you're going to play a lot of nickel, you'll have 2 good safeties in McLeod and Jenkins, but the 3 cover guys, it's going to be a big issue for this team this year.
Listen, it's malpractice, right? Howie Roseman goes into the offseason. I mean, you can really lay the blame at his feet for the issues at the cornerback, and there are so many free agents out there. I mean, do you think this team is going to kick the tires around on anyone? I brought up Fuller only because of his connections to Douglas. And I know there's been speculation right away. They're showcasing Nelson a little more, perhaps to try to trade him or maybe try to move Matthews. I mean, we'll get to that in a moment. But if anything, what free agent players out there would be a good fit right now? Because it tells you if you got to go the free agent route, a lot of times those guys are let go because they can't play anymore.
And also with the new cut-down rule, we don't know really who's going to be available until very late. So that's a tough thing to ask to get them ready for week 1 up against the Redskins, a place where it's been a house of horrors for the Eagles the last few years. They just brought in Graham. They brought the kid in, Glover, as well. So I think this is going to be the group. Maybe if a veteran does become available, they'll make a splash at him. But I think this is the group you have right now. And overall, Howie's done a nice job this offseason. There was a lot of places to fix on this team. The number one importance is surrounding the quarterback in Carson Wentz, and they definitely improved that. So I like the job Howie did this offseason, but then you look at the draft, you take Sidney Jones, that's an investment. They didn't get immediate help, and that's what probably is going to end up hurting this team this year and preventing them from making the playoffs.
It's an excellent point. And you mentioned the cornerbacks. In one series, they'll look really good, and then they'll look bad. And then it leads into the wide receivers, and everyone's saying, by all counts, Nelson Aguilar, he's the name this year. All of a sudden, he gets it. He's going to be an all-pro. I wonder how much of that has to do with the fact that he's going against some of these cornerbacks. I mean, what do you have more confidence going into this season than last when you've been able to keep a little more of a close watchful eye on Nelson Aguilar? What has he done that, if anything, has impressed you?
Well, I've been critic number 1 on Nelson Aguilar. And let me tell everyone again, and I'll say it very slowly. Slow down. He's been good. There's been no question he's been good in training camp. But you bring up a great point. They're going up against corners that are not that good. He's been better. He's showing more confidence. I see him make a big catch almost every practice that I'm out there. But until this guy is able to do it in 2 consecutive regular season games, I can't be putting him ahead of Jordan Matthews being a slot wide receiver, being ready to put him on the Pro Bowl and in the playoffs. I think everyone needs to slow down, and let's see if this kid's confidence, which is good right now, is good to go when you get Washington and then the game after that up against the rest of the Kansas City Chiefs team.
How about Alshon Jeffrey and that shoulder injury? I mean, he's going to be limited again. They'll decide whether he's going to play. Is this something that bears worth watching, or is this something that's not as serious as maybe the media potentially makes it out to be?
I don't think they're concerned one bit. I saw Alshon get some extra work in yesterday with Carson Wentz right behind the media tent. I'm not concerned about it. I think when it's week 1, this guy will be ready to go and everything will be fine. I get it because he's been limited. But Alshon Jeffrey doesn't need to go through some of these monotonous drills right now in training camp. I think he'll be fine. I'm not concerned. I'd be surprised if he plays. coming up tomorrow against the Packers in Lambeau. I would be surprised, but I think this guy's a professional, and he'll be ready to go.
12:26 on a Wednesday. We'll take you up to 2. Rich Quinones here. Zach Gelb joining me. Of course, Fox Sports Radio 920 The Jersey, host of Zach Gelb Show Monday to Friday, 4 to 6. So definitely catch him during the week in a couple hours. We appreciate him squeezing on for a couple moments. All right, let's 2 more quickies on the Eagles, then we'll kind of take a look at the NFC East as a whole. I thought you always know that jump, right, from year 1 to 2 with the quarterback, and I think he will be fine. I think he's got to fix up a couple things mechanically, but I think they made enough investments with the offense. You bring in Blunt, you got a red zone threat, a bruising back, you got maybe Pumphrey, you still have Sproles, you got the wide receivers. I think in that regard, Carson will have a solid season. Now, going forward, though, you look at Doug Peterson, you look at some of the play calling last year, you look at some of the, I don't want to say blunders so much. I think a lot of it was rookie mistakes, if you will, as a head coach. But how important is it for this team to not only get off to a good start, but also, when the head coach says what he says a couple times and starts to instill a little more confidence, the expectations are there. And if it doesn't work out, it falls back on the head coach. So how much pressure is on Doug this year, and how important is it for this team to get out to a good start?
There's a lot of pressure, especially when you hear the names of John Gruden maybe showing interest, and also Harbaugh potentially. If he doesn't make the playoffs 3 straight years in a row, that could be it in Baltimore, and he clearly has Eagles connections. So there's a lot of pressure, and this schedule does no favors. I was not a fan of the comments that he made a few weeks ago, comparing the team to the talent of the Green Bay Packers, saying they're more talented now. I get the point he was trying to make. They have to put everything together to reach that success, and that's what that Green Bay team did. But I don't see this talent being anywhere close, and it's a tough schedule. And if they don't come out of the gate with some wins early, the fan base, which does not have a big-time amount of confidence in Doug Peterson, will start to turn and do a complete 180. And I'm not saying this confidence is great in the coach right now. I don't think anyone could have great confidence after year 1. I understand if you're down in the dumps, but the decision-making needs to improve. You can't be having these blunders, and I'll use that word, when you're up against the Giants. You have 2 bad play calls on 4th down. The decision against the Cowboys to not kick the field goal was an abysmal one. So early on, you have the Redskins, Chiefs rested coming off that Thursday night game up against the Pats, Giants, Chargers, Cardinals, and also the Panthers. And then you're back with the Redskins, and you're already almost done through October. This is a tough schedule, and the coach needs to show me in year number 2 that he knows what he's doing. I think the quarterback is great. I love Carson Wentz. His confidence and the way that he just holds himself in the public amazes me. I think he's well above his years and well beyond his years, but it's time for the coach to start matching what the quarterback is showing us. This coach has to do better in year number 2.
Team closer in your backyard, the New York Giants. We know what their defense can do, that huge investment going into the offseason. Everyone was laughing at the money they spent. It turned out to be one of the lights-out defenses. I think they'll be just as good this year, perhaps top 5, especially against the run with Snacks. It comes down to the offense, right? It comes down to that offense. It comes down to that left tackle position and Flowers. You and I have talked about this. That's an offense that's designed where they're going to try to throw the football to set up the run as opposed to run to set up the pass. Again, going forward, they make a move with Marshall. They turn around and they draft Ingram. They draft a very good tight end. They got a fullback now in place. This offense on paper, better than last year. But I still think if you're a Giant fan, you got to be concerned with that offensive line.
Now, when I look at this Giants team, and I'm not a Giant fan, as you know, but there's some days that you wake up and you feel Super Bowl. This team could do it. And then there's some days you wake up and exactly like you're saying, that offensive line may come back to bite them in the you-know-what in the NFC Championship game when you go up against a dominant pass rush. That offensive line just has to be better, and I was surprised this offseason that Jerry Reese ignored it. That shows that he has confidence in those players, and Jerry Reese did a sensational job last year with the money that he invested in the defense. But if he fails this year, you will be wasting the end of Eli Manning's career, and you need to protect Eli because I don't think Eli is great anymore, but I still believe he could be a Super Bowl winning quarterback and could be good enough. But it's all about those big boys up front. You got to like Richburg, you got to like Pugh. But the left tackle and right tackle spot, they just got to be better. There's no sugarcoating this.
Yeah, and we've seen what the quarterback can do once he gets into the postseason. Look, there's been all this talk. listen, when you're part of the media like we are, some stuff gets overblown, some stuff gets exaggerated, and sometimes you just beat it to death in nauseum. So Colin Kaepernick sitting out there without a job. The Miami Dolphins turn around. They lure Jay Cutler out of a quick retirement from the booth. They're going to pay him $10 million. It's a soft contract when you look at it. I thought they should have stuck with more, to be honest with you. The argument is, well, why does it always have to be Cutler over this guy or that guy over Cutler? That's a story for another day. But, you surprised that the Dolphins are pulling a guy out of retirement instead of sticking with a veteran that understands this offense? And I get the ties from Gase, but what were your initial thoughts on Cutler coming back?
Let me ask you a question. Does it really matter with Tom Brady in that division?
It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't.
No.
I said that yesterday. It doesn't. But, this could be – they were a playoff team last year.
Mm-hmm. No, they were. And people forget that because when you play in the AFC East and it's dominated by the Patriots, you'll forget that. But they did win 10 wins last year. Adam Gase did a good job. I wasn't surprised by it. Now, it wouldn't have been my first choice. I don't think the world of Jay Cutler. But, hey, he's familiar with Adam Gase. That's why you bring him in. I could also understand the argument for keeping him Matt Moore. I believe that the Dolphins are going to be a team this year, and I got this feeling even before Ryan Tannehill went down, and we still need to know the entire thing of that injury, but before he went down, I was a little bit on the fence about them. I thought they were going to regress in year number 2. I wasn't a big believer, even though I do like Adam Gase. I just don't think this team could be consistently good enough and replicate what they did a year ago.
All right, I know you're a baseball guy as well, so two before I let you get out of here. Just their initial reaction learning the passing of Darren Dawn. I said the other day, there's probably 2 or 3 leaders over the last 25, 30 years when it came to Philadelphia sports, and right away I thought of Dutch, and the other I thought of Brian Dawkins. But your thoughts on the passing of Darren Dalton?
I had Jim Leland on the show yesterday, who managed Dutch at the end of his career when the Bills traded him to the Marlins, and they won in '97 for the final few months. And he made the point, you look at Dutch and you also look at Don Baylor, 2 guys that both passed away, and they were very similar in personality and what they were all about and playing the game the right way and being a leader and just being 2 both very good baseball players. When I look at Dutch, hey, he's not the greatest baseball player of all time. He didn't have the most talent, but he was a damn good baseball player. Someone that made 3 All-Star games and was the heart and soul of that team. And I had Kurt Schilling on yesterday, too. And he always talked about how Dutch just knew how to connect with everyone in that magical run of the '93 Phillies that fell short to the Toronto Blue Jays with the Joe Carter home run and all that. But he was a leader that would not be afraid to get in your face, but also knew which guys could take it and which guys couldn't. And when there were guys that did not want to be ridiculed in the media publicly, he did that behind the scenes. So Dutch Dalton, a great person, a great baseball player, and someone where I'm driving around Philadelphia this morning, and you just continue to hear the amount of lives that he touched. So a very special man, and unfortunately, a life that's gone way too soon at the age of 55 with a terrible illness.
Yeah, 389 in that World Series against Cleveland. So, if anything, he peaked at the right time. Got about 30 seconds. I don't know if I caught you off guard on this. I apologize, but Major League Baseball suspended Joe West for 3 games because he came out and said he was asked about who are the biggest complainers in baseball, and he said Adrian Beltre. I think it's Bush League that baseball would suspend Joe West for 3 games, maybe fine him. But I don't know if you read the story, if you heard it, if it's the first time you're hearing it. But what's your thoughts on that?
Just off first reaction, I did read it a little bit this morning. I would just say, whatever happened to freedom of speech?
We don't have it anymore.
That should be a fine, right? Not a suspension, a fine. I think Joe West should shut his mouth, but shouldn't there just be a fine in there?
I agree.
That's my thought on it.
We're too PC, Zach. We're too soft.
You got to be careful though with now, because hey, we see something on the radio, the next thing you know,
we're done. Yeah,
enemy number 1.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me, my friend. All right, listen. Appreciate you jumping on board. We'll do this weekly, and keep up the great work. And I appreciate a couple moments, pal.
Thanks, brother. Nothing better than I would want to do on my birthday than talk to you. I appreciate it.
Get out of here. I appreciate it, pal. You got it. Good stuff.